those mandates in around the education. But as professionals, we need to make sure that we upskill, and institutions need to understand that AI education is very important for that foundation, because you need to understand the art of the possible, also the challenges with AI, such as, for example, we just mentioned using ChatGPT, right? It can create hallucinations, misinformation. It is not perfect. It is a probabilistic tool. It is not deterministic. And that's actually very important, especially in healthcare. I teach university, and I have seen students submit assignments where they used AI, but they gave me fake references, and they gave me information which is not correct. And that's because they used AI irresponsibly. They did not understand these issues that are there. So you definitely need to start with that education. And yes, there's lots of opportunity. You can actually use AI as a partner, and every interaction can be that educational piece. But for African communities, we definitely need to make sure that we're addressing these challenges. Otherwise, we're going to have that gap. And we need to make sure that we are also designing the platforms and addressing these concerns.
Thank you so much. And Yogita, I was seeing you nod your head. I don't know if you want to add to any barriers.
I do.
Okay.
So very recently, when I was speaking at a Dubai conference, was the fact that when our students you started, turning in assignments using AI. So we as faculty became smart. At least that was my classroom experiment. Is I asked them to use AI deliberately, and then I trained the AI that they were supposed to use to ask them questions instead of giving them answers. And interestingly, so with that experiment, what happened was the students were forced to think outside the traditional norms of an assignment. And that is what I mean by, using AI to push Socratic thinking, to push critical thinking, that we don't want regurgitation of work from you. We want you to use AI as a tool that supports your learning versus you depending on AI for information. So, as responsible educators, as responsible institutions of higher education, it's not only our job to create AI literacy. There's another paper that I was working on, another research, is the AI anxiety among students is extremely high. But the more that they work and play with AI, their anxiety reduces because they are now understanding the technology. But just because you're adopting a technology does not mean you fully understand the frameworks behind the technology. So what is it that goes into AI to create those hallucinations? How do you detect those hallucinations? What is your responsibility when an hallucination shows up? And how do you then deal with it? It's my job as an educator. I know it's extra work for me as an educator, but I need to have solutions for my students to make sure that they're using AI responsibly. Because if they don't do it in their ethically or in their safe spaces, such as their schools and colleges, they will not do it in their workplace too. We are a training background. We are a training ground for these students. And similarly, this goes up to schools and, at the institutions where children are growing up with technologies, especially the digital natives. For example, my child, they refuse to use AI. It's something that they have developed over the years, that I don't want to use AI because AI is taking away work from artists. That's their thinking right now. So if digital natives are already developing their boundaries and systems about AI, then we as higher education instructors really need to figure out what is the legacy that we want to pass on to these students, and how is it that we are going to use AI in our coursework so that we send them this as a toolkit versus as a dependable variable, if you will, and it for their workspaces.
Thank you so much for sharing that example. So one other question maybe I would love to hear both of your thoughts on is, AI systems are often designed outside of Africa and may not necessarily reflect local realities. So I'm wondering what strategies governments or institutions can adapt to ensure that, local languages, cultural context, and sort of regional health needs shape AI solutions for the continent.
Mm. It's a very interesting and a very hard question. If you don't mind, I'll go first on it.
Go ahead.
Um, uh, so, like in India, what's happening in India right now is that there's push to develop AI for India and by Indians. There is push to develop socioeconomic systems that depend on this AI. And AI, which is a foundational enabler, is in, for example, for a digital, public infrastructure or for governance. The push is there that local AI that is being developed is being used. I'm not saying that we are getting successful at it, but the fact of the matter is that the conversation is already on. Africa similarly needs to develop AI for Africa, by Africa, and for, and as an outcome for Africa. They have to focus on socioeconomic outcomes. There is no way that AI is being utilized without creating socioeconomic injustice, and that injustice, like initially said, needs to be deliberately nipped in the bud. Because if we do not do it from the beginning, then the homework that you'll have to do to make up for it will be much more stronger, which we obviously don't want to. So you need to make sure that AI is a foundational enabler and that AI is being utilized by the next generation, by the upcoming generation for their own benefit. And that is why it's very important that there are certain guardrails in and governance models already built into the picture. There has to be an African Union, something like an African Union of Continental AI strategy, wherein the ethics, the data sovereignty, the capacity building, the investment sharing is all taken care of. Implementation mechanisms need to be extremely well thought out. And these mechanisms and the regulatory sandboxes that come with it, the algorithmic transparency, which will take care of the inclusive framework, the auditability of these factors, the multi-stakeholder approach, which is missing from developing nations and low and middle income groups. That is, India absolutely suffers because of it. Okay, we don't want you to repeat our mistakes. Of course, governance is trying to take care of it, but it still is a very long way to go, especially the fact that Indian organizations have already started, implementing AI, and there are plenty of layoffs happening in the name of AI. So how we need to, at least for Africa, you all can actually steer away from it if it is thoughtfully built into the systems from the word get-go.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Alina, same question if you would like to add anything else.
These are all excellent points. Maybe I'll add that many platforms and AI models, foundational models, are designed, they're based on Western data, Western medical education practices, Western medical practices in general, such as credential, licensing, exams, specializations. And that means if you take that AI that's built on that data, you're going to have problems because I do agree, you do need AI that is built specifically for that African population. So African health needs often require different competencies. Community health, there's different resource constraints and decision making. So if you are not careful and if you are applying AI tools, but not designed specifically with that African healthcare institutions in mind, you're going to be optimizing potentially the wrong outcomes. And that's actually very important to note. I want to give you an example. My team and I, we built an AI tool to communicate with mortgage brokers. And we wanted to make sure that we communicate both in English and in French, as I live in Canada. But in Canada, we have to make sure that we speak using French Canadian version of the French. And that's, and we also need to speak in the way that a financial institution is going to speak. So if you just apply out of the box tools, yes, you're going to get translation, but it's not going to be nuanced in the way that we speak as a financial institution, and it's not going to be nuanced with this French Canadian piece. So for Africa, lots of dialects, lots of different languages. And if models are not trained on that data, you're going to have those biases. And India is struggling. China is also pursuing custom AI models that are built on that data. Every country right now is running towards AI and building, but that also means resources. It also means you need that compute, you need that data, those data centers, and you need that foundation. So we are definitely seeing an almost like an arms race when it comes to AI, and governments are just running towards bigger, better models, or sometimes even cheaper models. So
Okay, really great points. Thank you. Thank you both so much for those responses. I know we're getting close to time, but if hopefully Dr. Gbe is fine with it. I'll ask just one last set of questions. Very quick questions. Hopefully you may take 60 seconds or so to answer before we open it up for Q&A. But I would love to
Walker, just to help you, you have about 10 minutes, including audience questions. So please.
Wonderful. So we have time for this last set of questions, and same questions for both of you. But I would love to hear your thoughts on what you think is the one action, if you had to pick. If you feel inclined to share more than one, feel free. But if you could prioritize one action that you think should be prioritized now to ensure that sort of AI benefits African institutions, particularly tertiary institutions, and consequently populations.
I think we'll request Miss Elena to start this question.
I think you can definitely leverage the models and the AI tools that are already available. I do think that building custom AI systems is definitely the right approach, putting in the regulation, that governance, but I would definitely start with the education piece, making AI education a priority, mandating AI education across healthcare institutions, across educational institutions, making sure it's built in and that we are understanding how to use AI, those risks, and that's what's going to unlock those opportunities.
I would add, along with AI education, AI literacy, establishing data governance. I mean, both go hand in hand. And one without the other is going to just perpetuate the inequities of the system. Because, like earlier said, most of the AI is built for the Western world by the Western world. And if AI needs to be developed in Africa for Africa, then it has to be the AI literacy has to also include the governance structures, because it is an infrastructure tool, just like electricity now, not and not just a luxury, which is usually portrayed as. So I would think it would be establishing the governance structures.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent.
Yes.
Thank you so much. And I'm looking at the chat. I don't see any questions, but